Coming up on Metro Scene, Washington native Alyson Cambridge joins us to chat about her role in the Washington National Opera production of Porgy and Bess, playing at the Kennedy Center. So don't go away. Metro Scene is up next. Porgy and Bess, the opera by American composer George Gershwin and Ira Gershwin, is an adaptation of DuBose Hayward's 1925 novel. The story is set in Charleston, South Carolina, in Catfish Row, a fictionalized version of the Cabbage Row neighborhood in Charleston in the 1920s. Welcome to Metro Scene. And I am joined by Alyson Cambridge, and she sings the role of Bess. Welcome to the show, Alyson.
Hi, Marvin. Thank you so much for having me.
This show starts May 23rd and runs through May 31st, right?
That is correct. Yes,
At the
we
Kennedy Center.
very soon.
Yeah, at the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. You're a Washingtonian, a native Washingtonian. You started singing in Washington. That's where your career started. But you also were went to Sidwell Friends, right? And you were a friend of who?
I do have a classmate, yes, that is well known. I was at Sidwell and friends with Chelsea Clinton during my time at Sidwell. Yes.
And you actually sang some songs from Porgy and Bess right there at Sidwell Friends, right?
I did. I did. My senior project was actually doing research on the history of Porgy and Bess and then giving a sort of senior voice recital performance. And so I sang several songs from Porgy and Bess on the stage at the Kogut Art Center at Sidwell Friends for my senior year. Yes.
And I hear that President Clinton was in the audience, right?
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. And we spoke afterwards and we talked about the Gullah dialect, which George and Ira really studied when they were writing Porgy and Bess. And so when you come to see the show, you'll hear the Gullah dialect reflected in the singing and in how we speak in the show. Yes, the president and I spoke after my performance, and he talked about having visited that region and being familiar with the Gullah dialect.
Let's talk about some of the memorable characters you're singing Bess. Also, Porgy, Crown, Clara, Sport and Life, and then some of the classic songs that are performed in this production.
Yes, well, I'll start with the title characters. I'll start with Porgy. So Porgy is a cripple, he's a beggar. Um, he's both sort of beloved in the Catfish Row community, but also is known for being a bit grumpy at times. Um, but he's a fixture in the community, and I think everybody is rooting for Porgy. He's had a rough go in life, being a cripple and poor. He has a soft spot for Bess, who is a complex character. She's sort of the it girl, but very controversial. She's known for her looks, her flirtatious way with men, and sort of surviving by being with different men. She has an alcohol and a drug problem, but she has a good heart. And she's in a relationship with Crown, who's definitely sort of the town menace. He's a big guy. He also has issues with drugs. He's quite violent. Bess and Crown have a very tumultuous, toxic relationship. And when there comes a time when Crown, I'm not giving any major plot points away here, but there is a murder in the very beginning opening scene by Crown, and he's forced to leave the town, and Bess is sort of left on her own without Crown. And when the rest of the community sort of turns its back on Bess and doesn't welcome her in initially, it's Porgy who extends his hand and welcomes her into his modest home and says, come on in, I'll take care of you, I'll protect you now. And what develops is a really tender and beautiful love story between the two of them, but it's unfortunately always overshadowed by Bess's struggles with addiction, both to unhealthy relationships and to drugs. And that's where sport in life comes in. He's quite a character. He's a showman, right? He is a drug dealer, but he's always in control, and his sort of snaky, sort of slithery ways get him into trouble, but he has a charm and a charisma to him that can't be denied. And he certainly has some of the most fun songs in the show. And then you have Clara and Jake, and they're the young lovebirds of Catfish Row. They're new parents. Clara's just had a baby. And of course, she sings the most famous song, probably from Porgy and Bess, which is Summertime. And that's what opens the show. And it really sets the tone. It's this young, hopeful mother just singing to her new baby. I don't want to give too much away, but some things happen with her and Jake. And then we have Serena, who is this sort of pious, moral compass of Catfish Row. She loses her husband in the first scene. There is a very heart-wrenching funeral scene where Serena sings "My Man's Gone Now." She's sort of the backbone, I would say, of Catfish Row, along with the character Mariah, who is a bit of a prophet, I guess. She sort of foretells things that will happen. She sort of oversees everyone. She's the one who's been in the community the longest. So that's sort of the gist of the main characters that make up Catfish Row and Porgy and Bess.
All right. And I think quite a few of our viewers probably have seen a movie back in the day and maybe have seen the production, but this production is different because it is directed by a different person. What makes it different when you all do it as an opera? I mean, I know I saw it the first time as a movie with Sammy Davis Jr. doing Sport and Life, and which was
Yes.
awesome job. Sidney Poitier, people like that. But what makes this one different?
So in general, doing an opera versus doing a television show or a movie, it's, you don't just come in and shoot your scenes for the day. That's not how it goes with opera. We really become a community ourselves as a cast. We all show up together on that first day of rehearsal. We all sit in a room and we sing through the opera together with our coaches, the pianist, the conductor, the director. The director usually gives a presentation. Francesca Zambello is the director of this production. She tells us about her vision of how she would like to tell this story. And it sort of, it infuses knowledge within us as we start the rehearsal process to know, okay, this is going to be the director's vision, and how might I sculpt my portrayal of my character based on how this production is going to go. And then, as I said, we've been here for about a month, and we're in the rehearsal rooms together every day. And, I had never worked with Reginald Smith, who's playing the role of Porgy. I knew a bit Norman Garrett, who's playing the role of Crown. But over the course of a month, you get very close with these colleagues. We're having to sing love duets, and then we're having to do fight scenes and choreography. And so you become close. You become like these members of Catfish Row, which I think it's very different than when you're filming a movie or a television show or something like that. So we've all bonded. And it's very important as a stage performer to feel comfortable, safe, trusting with your fellow colleagues, with the other singers, because the audience can tell. The audience can always tell if there's pure and real chemistry between the actors on stage. You can't fake it. And there's no film editor to say, cut, oh, wait, let's do Alyson's reaction different here, and then let's cut to Reggie's reaction there. It has to be fluid and it has to be real and organic. And that's what we've been working on over the past month to create that level of chemistry and a genuine connection that the audience will hopefully be able to see.
All right, we're going to talk a little more about that role you're playing, you're singing. Bess, it's an incredibly complex and multi-layered role. So we're going to come back and talk a little more about that and about your time spent in Washington, D.C. and how you got into singing opera. So don't go away, folks. We'll be back with Alyson Cambridge of Porgy and Bess.
What would you give for a child you loved to make their wish come true? To help them fight a critical illness? Just imagine what you'd do. Every single one of us can make the stars align, because when we come together, hope and joy will shine.
A lot of my best memories of the holidays are centered around my grandmother. My grandmother's sweet potato pie, it just felt like a hug. I remember every time we'd come to her house, once you open that door, like it just hits you and you're like, okay, the pies are ready, it's time. Food is a source of comfort. Food really helps bring people together.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to Metro Scene, featuring Alyson Cambridge, who sings the role of Bess in Porgy and Bess. It's going to be running May 23rd through May 31st at the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. And you sang this Bess role for the first time, I believe, in Charleston, right?
I did. When I made my role debut as Bess, it was in 2016 at the Spoleto Festival, which is in Charleston. And they had just opened up their new performing arts venue there. And so Porgy and Bess was the inaugural show to kick off the opening. And it was a very special, moving thing to be performing Porgy and Bess where it was set. And I was, living in Charleston for almost 2 months then. And I did go to see, Cabbage Row. And it was it was quite the experience being in Charleston and then performing this iconic and important piece of American opera.
All right. And I think I would like to know, and I know probably the viewers would like to know, how you deal with being in control vocally as an opera singer, especially in Porgy and Bess, and also emotionally, because it kind of comes close to that edge, you know?
Yes, absolutely. So for anybody who hasn't seen Porgy and Bess, it's an incredibly physical show for both Porgy and Bess and Crown and Sport and Life in particular. As I mentioned previously, Bess and Crown have a very violent and volatile and toxic relationship. And there is a scene where you see the physical the physical abuse that Crown puts on Bess. And so we have to rehearse those scenes very carefully, but they're very physically demanding. It's lots of throwing to the floor and, slaps and punches and lifts and carries and all these sorts of things. And we're also singing some of the most difficult music during these physical interactions. So for me, my process in singing this role and other very physically demanding roles is to really learn, study, and practice the role technically and vocally months in advance before I start the staging rehearsal process. So, prior to me arriving in Washington, I just wanted to make sure that no matter what, I know exactly what I'm doing vocally and technically, so that when we get to those rehearsals and they say, all right, now, Alyson, you're going to get thrown to the ground here, and then you got to run across the stage, he's going to lift you up, but then you have to go sing your high note. Then I'm sort of, I know exactly what I need to do in my voice and body to make sure that those notes come out and they sound pretty, but then I'm able to do all the physically demanding things as well.
All right. And you had to learn a little bit about that Charleston history, right? The rice, the slave trade.
Oh, yes, I did a lot of research, even back from when I first made my debut in this show. So I'm not sure if you know, but my debut in Porgy and Bess was as the young ingenue Clara in 2005 at Washington National Opera in this Francesca Zambello production. And then I returned, I did the role again in 2010, again here at Washington National Opera. And it's very much a full circle moment to come back 20 years later, now singing as Bess. But even back then, for any role, but I always do my research. You need to step into any show, any production, having a sense of the background. Is certainly something like Porgy and Bess, which is so specifically inspired by and based on a community that is real, even though Catfish Row is fictitious, even though some of the characters are fictitious, they are based on a community. And so learning the history and doing that research is incredibly important.
Mm-hmm. When you were in Charleston doing the production, did you get some of that good Gullah food? I mean, shrimp and grits and all that good
yes.
stuff.
Oh my gosh. The food scene in Charleston is incredible. It's
incredible.
So good. Yes, I ate well. I ate well in Charleston.
All right. Well, let's go back to talking about how you got into opera.
Sure.
A lot of, maybe you can inspire some other people, but how did you get into opera specifically?
Yes, well, I want to always inspire young people. When I was growing up in DC, there weren't many kids, frankly, that wanted to be opera singers, and I would even say I was one of them. I grew up playing the piano. I dabbled a bit in a couple other instruments, but I played sports. I loved soccer, and I was in lots of different social clubs in school. And I didn't really ever have the intention of becoming an opera singer, but I loved performing and I loved singing, and I used to imitate voices that I heard on the radio. And I could imitate pretty much any voice. And my mother listened to a lot of opera. And I would imitate the opera voices that I heard on the radio as a joke to make my friends laugh. And it was one of my mother's friends that said, Alyson, I know you're doing that as a joke, but you sound kind of good. Maybe you should take some voice lessons. And I was 12 years old at the time. And I went to go see a voice teacher. And I told her, I like to listen to Whitney Houston and Madonna. And she said, yeah, but I hear you have an opera voice. So why don't you sing something for me? So I just sang her a scale, didn't know what I was doing. And she just sort of was gobsmacked and said, are you really only 12? And I said, yes. And she goes, well, my dear, you are not going to sing like Madonna or Whitney Houston. I'd really like to train you classically. You have a natural ability. And so sort of the rest was history. And I started taking private voice lessons, and then I started doing more classes and voice lessons at the Levine School of Music, also here in Washington. So I would quite literally, it was, I think, every Wednesday, when I had a break in my schedule at Sidwell, my mother would come pick me up from Sidwell, drive me over to Levine School, where I would have my voice lesson and then come back. And then I'd have music theory lessons and stuff on the weekends at the Levine School. And I went to summer camps for singing then after that. And I realized, oh my gosh, there's other teenagers that are kind of into opera too. And I definitely sort of like found a tribe and a community of young people that enjoyed opera and were passionate about it. And then even when I went to college, though, I was still very academically inclined, and I have another degree in sociology and pre-law, but I also had got a degree in voice performance at Oberlin. And everything just, one thing kept leading to another. And my joy of performing and singing, communicating and inhabiting characters and expressing through vocalism, that's really what kept driving me. And then, meeting people after a show, talking to people in the audience who have felt in some way moved or touched by a performance it's like the greatest gift. And so that's really like what drives me. A small anecdote, I'm the executive director of an organization called the Black Leadership Arts Collective. And we recently performed at an awards induction ceremony in North Carolina about Mary Cardwell Dawson, who was the founder of the National Negro Opera Company. She was just inducted posthumously into the North Carolina Music Hall of Fame because she was born there. And myself and another member of my organization sang at this induction ceremony. And there were about 100 grade school age kids there, from maybe like 7 to 10 years old. They'd never heard opera before. They'd never seen opera singers live before. And we sang, myself and Kenneth Overton sang. And after the performance, these kids just rushed over to us, and their eyes were wide and they were hugging us and they were like, wow, wow, wow. And several of these young kids said, I want to be an opera singer now when I grow up. Oh my gosh. And it was one of my favorite days of 2025 thus far. Just seeing the joy and the power of music, the power of the human voice, and how it can touch and inspire young kids from all over. And yeah, I think that answers your question. I love inspiring the next generation.
Yeah, and I was just going to ask you, what will people get out of seeing this production? You just answered it. I mean, so parents, get your kids out there to see this great American opera, probably the greatest American opera. And
absolutely, without question, the greatest.
Yes. And it's people of color, folks. So get your kids out there, expose them to this genre of opera.
You make an excellent point, Marvin. That is, this is one of the only American operas where you will see on stage an entirely Black cast. And I think it's really important to point that out. This is a story about a Black community in Charleston. All of the people on stage are Black opera singers. However, the story that's being told is one that is universal. So I feel like, representation is really important. When I saw, for example, Kathleen Battle or Jesse Norman on stage, two Black iconic American opera singers. They inspired me. That was representation for me. I was like, okay, they're superstars. They're doing it. They are queens. I want to be like that. And this generation, those of us on the stage here at Washington National Opera, we want to be that for that next generation. I have two young nieces. My youngest one, the youngest one, Zoe, she and her older sister have seen me perform at Carnegie Hall. They've seen me perform here at Washington National Opera. And now at age 7, she's like, I think I might want to be a singer like Auntie Alyson. And so it's exposure. It's exposing kids, young people to the wonders of this art form. And it's so special. It's so special. And there's amazing tunes. Everybody, you'll be like tapping your toes in the seats and humming along to Summertime and all these great hits. There's really something for everybody in this show.
Mm-hmm. And, there are a couple other native Washingtonians in this production too. Denise Graves is in it, right?
Yes, indeed. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Denise Graves, who went to Duke Ellington, and Kenneth Kellogg, who sings the role of Crown in the other cast. He's also a DC native. And so many of the amazing choristers and some of the smaller roles are all DC natives. And I've actually sung with so many of them. They've been in this production for 20 years. So it was so nice to walk into the rehearsal room with the chorus and be like, oh my gosh, hi, it's so good to see you again. And they've been with this production the entire time. So it really is a family community experience.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I'll be there. I think the second day. So I think the 24th
Excellent.
matinee, you'll be singing.
That's me.
And I can't wait to see it.
Thank you. I'm so excited for you to come. And we as a cast and a production team and the orchestra and everybody collectively, we are so excited to welcome the Washington, D.C. community, the DMV, to come and enjoy this incredible piece of American opera.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us on Metro Scene, and all the best in this run at the Kennedy Center, May 23rd through May 31st. All right. So for Metro Scene, I'm Marvin Jackson. We'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.